Hello and welcome to my series of guides in getting started with TSM 4. In the last video we looked at the interface and the various settings in TSM. In today's video we're going to look at setting up a group and applying a simple posting operation to it. So say for example, here we've got some Starlight Rose that I might have farmed from a herbalism or something like that. So we want to create a group, and a group is basically a way of putting together a list of items that all share the same kind of thing that you want to do with them. So say for example this Starlight Rose, let's have a look at that as an example. So we've got our base group here which has the default operation set to it. And the base group is the root group and everything else is a subgroup of that one. So to add a new group in, we just click new group. And then in here we have a name we can edit it to. So let's call this one, let's give it the broad category of herbs. So maybe we want to put all our herbs in here. And we're not going to do anything with these, we're just going to post them on because I'm going to keep this group simple just as a demonstration. So to add the item into the item's in your bags here, so the easiest way to get it across is to have it in your bags and then copy it in. There are other ways of adding items into groups or importing strings and such forth, but for now we're just going with the simple option, which is to have something in your bags and then you add it to a group if it's not already in a group. So it's here and we add the item, then it appears here in the list, grouped items. So now we would want to give this an operation, so we want to tell TSM what we're going to do with it. Now for this one we're going to be doing a auctioning operation because we want to post these on and sell them. Now again we could just use the default operation and that works fine for a lot of situations, but if we were to use this now and went and posted it on, let's have a look what would happen. So we're going to go to the auctioning tab where we post things on. Now the base group by default is selected. We're going to turn that off and select just the herbs, and we'll run a post scan on just the herbs. So it's going to scan the auction house for all the herbs. Then here you go, you've got Starlight Rose coming in and the default operation is 11 gold 94. If you look here for all auctions, and you can see the list here of all the Starlight Rose, so TSM is putting them down here at 11.94, so it's just underneath. It's 94 and 99, so it's undercutting by a copper, and it's doing a default of 24 hours, but it's only doing 5 stacks of 1. So the quantity isn't quite working for us here because we've actually got 353 in our bags and we want to put all those on. So this is where we start tailoring our operations. So let's go back to our group. So now we've got our herbs here. So our herbs are in a group and then there's a group operations here. So this is specific to herbs that are selected. Now we want to make a new group here for auctioning. So we're going to override the parent operation and we're going to create a new group here. So go here and we go create new operation. So here's our new operation. It's assigned to the group herbs. We're going to change this name to something like sell times 200. So this is not what we've got, but what we're going to do with it. So the operation is going to be based on what we're doing and how many we're going to do. So this is just to give us a reminder. We could apply this operation to multiple groups. So you've got the general details operations. I don't tend to change much here. The main key stuff you've got here is the posting settings. So we're going to look here. So you can choose your auction duration between 12, 24 and 48 hours. So I would look at something like this and think, okay, well, how often am I going to want to repost it and how often do I think it's going to sell? Because obviously if I put it on for less, then it will be cheaper to post. So for this instance, we're going to go with 48 hours. Now if I bring up my bag, if I move that down and see my bag, it's helpful to have the item you want to post visible so you can look at the tooltip for the item. So at the moment, if I hover over this, we can see we've got a min buyout price. So this is all the different price sources. The market value is the market value of my region on Shadow Song. The region market value average is the average for the whole of EU, and then the region sale average is the price that they think it sells for. Then you've got the sale rate at 0.55, and the average daily sold is absolutely whopping 4,500. So this sells quite frequently, looking at that. And then down there at the bottom you can see the TSM auctioning min, normal, max prices. So this is based on the operation that's currently applied to the Starlight Rose. So the minimum, the lowest amount is 4 gold 67. If there weren't any auctions on at all, it would post it on for the normal amount, which is 37 gold 38, and then the highest it would ever post it for would be 93. So what we're going to do first is we're going to look at go down this list. So we've got post cap, so how many different stacks are we going to post up? So 5 is fine, but this was the difference here. Our posted stack size is a limit here of 1, whereas this goes in a nice stack of 200. So we're going to change this to 200. So we could do 5 stacks of 200 at any one time. And now turning on allow partial stacks would mean that TSM would look at this. It got 1 stack of 200 and 1 stack of 153. So if I turn on allow partial stacks, then TSM will post both the 200 stack and the stack of 153. You can set whether you don't want to have that many in the bags or that many expires, but at the moment we're going to leave that as it is. I'm going down here. This is the good stuff. So price settings, you can set a bid amount to be slightly lower than your buyout price. This could maybe tempt someone to put in a bid for an item. I sometimes put this down to something like 96%. It's completely up to you. Undercut amount, I would always recommend to keep at 1 copper. Now these are the 3 main operations. For each posting operation you have a minimum price, a maximum price and a normal price. So the minimum price is the lowest TSM will go before not wanting to post it on, because when it's below minimum it says don't post items. So if you look here at the moment, TSM is looking at this and going a min price of 4 gold 67. Now the way TSM has calculated that is based on a number of different sources, price sources. So it's looked at this is the function here. So if you ignore this at the beginning and just look at these are the price sources here. You've got crafting, DB market, DB region market average, and vendor sell. So crafting, obviously you can't make Starlight Rose, that doesn't apply. DB market is this first price here. That's the market value at 19 gold 75. DB region market average is the region market average value, which is 17 gold 60, and it's taking an average between those two and quartering it, basically timesing it by 0.25, and then that is the value you're getting now of a minimum price of 4 gold 67. So you don't really need this one at this point, because obviously vendor sell is something to bear in mind, that you don't want to sell something for more than you could possibly sell it for at a vendor. But you could simplify this. Just when you're starting out, I'd really recommend simplifying your operations, because it helps understand all the different pricing sources. So what I would look at here is basically 2 different things. There's the DB market and the DB region market average. The DB market I find is very good for items that are quite fast flowing and there's never really none on the market, and that way you're always reacting to the latest prices, because DB market is only from the last, I think it's 14 days or so. Whereas the DB region market average is a longer average spread over several servers, so it gives you a more general idea as to the price of things. And it's worth looking at both of them in the tooltip. That's why we have all this tooltip information, so that we can base our decisions from looking at the prices of both our own server, which at the moment I can see the min buyout of 11 gold 95 is actually quite a bit lower than the region sale average of 19 gold. So you kind of like look at all these prices and make a decision yourself as to, okay, what do I want to do in my situation? So for something like herbs, I would suggest using something just like DB market. So we're just going to look at the market price of of our server right here. So you could just set it to that, but you obviously need a percentage of this. So what I would suggest is something like, I wouldn't want to go lower than say 60% of the DB market. This is where you can put in your own values and you can tailor this to your own needs. You press enter on that, and now you can see the minimum price has gone to 11 gold 85. So we know at the moment at 11 gold 95 we're just within our threshold of 60% DB market. So we can see that the prices are fluctuating a fair amount on my server. Now obviously the situation we're in at the moment with pre-patch just being launched is we know that some things are going to suddenly go very cheap. So you want to always think about sort of what kind of price, what's the lowest you want to go to. So you could maybe change this. If you change that to 50% and then hover over the icon again, you can see now the minimum price has gone down to 9 gold 87. Is that the kind of price I'd want to do? Maybe. And then if it's below minimum, you can either say don't post any more items, or you could post at the minimum price, or ignore auctions below. The other options aren't really relevant for this, but I would probably suggest say, well, if you want to get them on anyway, post them at the minimum price. Now the other factor is set maximum price. This would be for a situation in that say they've all been sold and someone else has put something on for a massively inflated price, like 1,000,000 gold, and you think, okay, well, that's never going to sell. So I want to set my upper limit as to something that's going to be more reasonable. Now, to avoid strings being invalid when you're using different price sources, I tend to try and stick to the same price source for both my minimum, maximum, and normal. So for this instance, I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to take everything else out apart from DB market, and set my maximum price to be something like 500% DB market. Press enter, and then when above maximum, I'd say, okay, I want to post at the maximum price. So that's my upper limit. And then my normal price, we'll take DB market again. This would be a situation if there were no other Starlight Roses on, which we probably can guess in the case of something like Starlight Rose, because it's quite a frequent seller. This is unless someone's completely reset the market, this is going to be quite a rare case for this to happen. So I'd maybe put this at something like 120% of DB market. Press enter for that. So what I'm doing here is I'm just setting a set of simple rules for which TSM to have a look at and decide what it's going to do with the pricing structure of Starlight Rose. So if I hover over the tooltip now, you can look down at the bottom of the tooltip there. You can see a minimum price of 9 gold 87, a normal price of 23 gold, which when we compare that against the market value and the region market value average is a little bit higher. So that would be in a situation if, okay, there's no more on, I'm going to maximize my situation and I'm going to sell them for a slightly higher profit. And then the maximum price we've got there at 98 gold, which is probably a unusual situation to be in, but it's there just in case. So that's our first operation. We called it sell times 200. We could maybe put that a bit more specific based on what we've got, because we're saying, okay, we've got 5 times 200 and we're using DB market as our average. So we could maybe make this auctioning operation something like DB market. So we know what kind of price source we're using, and we're using 5 times 200. So that would be our general operation. Now if we want to do something very specific, we could do something just for Starlight Rose and we could put in exact values. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to use this one for now. So back in our group, we look at the herbs. The group operation is now DB market 5 times 200. And we know from hovering over the tooltip what the min, normal and max price is. So when you close this down and go back to the auction house, now in my auctioning tab I've got the herbs selected here. I run a post scan on just the herbs. So what TSM will do now is it will scan all the herbs and check whether I'm within the minimum, and the maximum range. If I'm within that, then it will decide what to do. In this case, it's going to undercut the competition because we know that our minimum price is 9 gold 87, and so if you look at all of the auctions here at the moment, the lowest one here is 11 gold 90, so we're going to come in just under that at 11 gold 89 silver and 99 copper. And you can see here the stack quantity we're going to do. There's 2 postings, one of 2. The first one, we're going to post 1 stack of 200. So if we click post for that, and then the second stack is going to be 1 stack of 153. So we're going to post that. So that would be a way of setting up your first group and organising things. Now you could expand on this, and you could maybe put all your Legion herbs in here that you want to sell. So say for example I collected all the other herbs, and I can go and click each of these and add those items into the same group, herbs, and I could call this group Legion herbs. Now I might want to make a subgroup, and so it's very easy to go into this group, create another group. I'm going to call this one herbs. And then what we can do is drag the Legion herbs into the herbs subgroup, and now that's nested within that one. So then I could have all of the Draenor herbs, and I could just decide to do different things with those. And this is the true beauty of TSM 4. Being able to organise your groups and then organise the operations related to each of those groups. And this is how you develop it. My suggestion, as always, is to start small, start simple, and grow from there. So in this instance, we've got all of these, and we're going to post them on. You can look at the different min, normal, max prices, because they're all different based on the actual herbs themselves. So if we were to go and post these on now, and now we click on our Legion herbs. So if we click herbs there, it'll do everything below it. Or if we just do Legion herbs on its own, we can run a post scan. Now you can see here we've got some interesting options coming through. Foxflower, it's undercutting competition, but on all the other ones they're below the minimum price. So TSM is saying I'm not going to post them that low, I'm just going to post them at the minimum price. So you could look at each of these and decide whether that's what you want to do, or you could go back into your operation and you could lower your threshold depending on what you want to do. So for instance, let's look at Dreamleaf. At the moment we are right down here at 37% of DB market average, so we're a lot lower than our 50%. So you can see here, it's certainly at this time of the game, people are dumping their materials, and so you're able to get things quite cheaply. If you still want to sell things yourself, then you could make that decision. Do you want to go to this rock bottom price, or do you want to keep your price at where it's at? Because at the moment the Dreamleaf price is at 1 gold 95. So if you were to look into your auction here, you'd be coming in at this point here. So there are some herbs that will be cheaper than yours. You don't always have to be the cheapest. I mean, you are putting a stack of 200 on here, so that is a neat and a convenient stack for someone who wanted to buy them. It's all down to your own decision-making process. You can decide, okay, do I want to go to rock bottom? Do I want to set my percentage down to 30% or 20%? Do you just want to get rid of it and don't worry about the price? Or do you want to try and make as much money as you can but still guarantee a sale? This will all depend on your server and what's going on. So these are just examples, but it's the kind of thinking you can do with each of your operations. For this one, we're going to go through and I'm just going to post them at the minimum price. Now I'm going to use my scroll wheel for this now that we've got multiple things on. So I'm going to hold control down and just use the scroll wheel, and it will post them all on really, really quickly. So that was using DB Market as a price source. What about the other things in other situations? Well, let's have a look at, say for example, we went and did some dungeon runs on some old world dungeons, and we picked up some potential transmog sales or maybe a battle pet. What would you do in those situations? So let's say for example we create another couple of groups. I'm going to call one of these battle pets. And the other one is going to be transmog. Now I've got a few things here in my bags now. I've got a silver dragonhawk hatchling that's level 1, and I've got a Mardenhole great sword of the Harmonious. So there are different types of this, so someone wanting to buy this wouldn't necessarily be interested in the type of sword if they just want to get it for the looks. The same with this one, Duskwoven Branch of the Quick Blade. Now each of these will have different prices depending on the type of them. So what you do in a situation like this is there's an option to ignore random enchants. So if I click this, you can see here that the Silver Dragonhawk hatchling has gone grey. That basically means that TSM is going to ignore the level of the battle pet. Now this is something you may or may not want to do because level 25 battle pets generally sell for a little bit more. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And you want to make that decision whether you want to ignore that price or not. And for something like transmog, you want to look at this and decide, okay, well, if someone's just buying this for transmog and they're not worried about the stats, then I want to make sure that if I'm going to undercut everyone, that I'm undercutting the whole group of these items, irrespective of the stats for any one particular type. So we can add into our transmog group here, we're going to add in Duskwoven Branch and then Mardenhole Greatsword, add those in there, and then for the battle pet, I'm actually going to turn this off at the moment, so it's gone back to the regular one, and I'm going to click Silver Dragonhawk Hatchling level 1. I'm going to add that in. So now we have this, the two transmog items in our transmog group and our battle pet in the battle pet group. Now each of these can have different operations, or they could have the same operation. What we're going to do here is we're going to create a new operation, and that's going to be based on the DB region market average. So it's going to take the average of the whole region for these, because for me, something like transmog and battle pets, I want to have a look at the whole price of my region, because these can get artificially inflated on my own server, and I want to avoid situations where I'm just pricing myself higher and higher and it's never going to sell. So this operation, I'm going to use 48 hours again. Now for these things, I only want to have one on at any one time. So I'm going to change this to 1. And then I'm going to set the bid down to, again, 96%. That's down to personal preference. And then I'm going to use DB region market average as my price source. I'm only going with single ones at the moment. Obviously you can do min, max and average of all of these. But for the moment, I'm just using this as my simple solution. Remember, start simple and then grow from there. So I now want to think about the percentages of each of these. How low do I want to go based on the DB region market average? Would it be as low as 30%? I mean, if it's something I'm not too concerned about and I'm just happy to sell it, then that may be the case. Now, if I'm using DB region market as my maximum price, then that means I'm not going to be artificially inflating it by just because the DB market price refreshes every 14 days. It's very easy to, if you're the only person selling something, is to basically inflate your own prices higher and higher and higher every time you repost. So this way, using the DB region market average, there's less risk of that, and you can use this as a solid price source. So say for instance, we only wanted to go no higher than 190% of DB region market average. And if it did get that high, then we just want to post it at the maximum price. And the same with the minimum price, we want to post that at the minimum price. And then the regular amount would be something like just slightly higher than this, maybe 110%. Of DB region market average. These are all up to you what figures you use. These are just the kind of figures that I would use. So this is based on DB region market average, and we're doing 1 by 1, and we're going as low as 30%. So I'm going to put that in as a reminder that it's going as low as min 30%. Gets a bit long these sometimes, so maybe you could just edit that down to be a little bit shorter and just say region average, like so. And then we can apply this operation to both our transmog, so the group operation here, override the parent operation, and we've got it in our list already here, so we don't need to create a new one. We can use region average 1 by 1, minimum 30%, and the same for our battle pets. There we go. And if we were to look in our bags, we can see here if we hover over these, the silver Dragonhawk hatchling has a minimum price of 442, a normal price of 1,620, and you can see at the moment the minimum price is 1,398, so we're well within the minimum and the normal. And then the maximum price we're going to go to is 2,700. And with those transmog items, there's 2 auctions on of this greatsword. So our normal price is 1,739, so that's actually very close to our current one of 1,749. We would go as low as 474 on this one and as high as 3,000, but as there's already 2 auctions on, we'll be undercutting whoever's there. And the same with this one. Now looking at this branch of the quick blades, you can see here that the min buyout at 13,000 is quite a bit higher than the region market value of 4,300. So we've set a maximum of 8,000. So we're going to be undercutting by quite a large margin on that one, simply because you can see here that the 13,000, especially when you look at the sale rate of 0.01 and a sale average price of 739 gold, you know that this is rather largely priced. So what we're trying to do here is just make sure that we go well under that 13,000 at 8,000, so we're taking a large chunk out of that artificial inflation. So we go and post these on now. We can select our battle pets and our transmog. So you can see here that Duskwoven branch, as we knew, it's above the maximum price, so we're going to post at the maximum price. If you were to look at these here, the current one that's on is on for 13,000, so we don't want to be that high because it just will never sell at that price. And the Dragonhawk hatchling, there are a number of them on. These all happen to be level 1, so these are the ones we're comparing against. If we have the ignore random enchants on with the hatchling and we just put it on regardless of level, then maybe those prices will be different. But at the moment we're just going for this one, just to show the 2 examples. So that's a couple of very basic examples of setting up groups and how you can organise them, and setting up a basic posting operation based on either DB market price or DB region market price, and the situations in which you might want to use those, and changing your stack quantity depending on your items. And you can see here how you would grow your groups depending on what you find over the course of your adventures, and how many you want to put them on for, how low you want to go, and what price market you want to compare them against. And this allows you to customize your own operations and pricing sources based on what you want to do in the game. So I hope you found that useful. It gives you a basic idea as to how to get started with groups and operations just for posting at this point. We can get into crafting and everything else a bit later, and looking at the different sort of value sources that TSM looks at, and then how to post those groups on TSM. So thank you for watching, happy gold making, and I'll see you next time.